In English, there are many different ways to be offensive. That means to insult someone, purposely or by accident. For our email writing, we're only going to talk about gender-neutral language, language that doesn't differentiate between men and women. In the not-so-distant past, it used to be very common and acceptable to say he when talking about both men and women. In 1961, looking ahead into the future, JFK talked about landing a man on the moon and returning him safely. Now, granted, all astronauts in the Apollo space program were men, so you could say that that statement was correct. But in 1969, when Neil Armstrong finally stepped out of the Eagle landing craft onto the surface of the moon, he famously said,
"It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind."
Now that sentence excludes all women. A modern politically correct version of that sentence would be, "That's one small step for a human, one giant leap for humankind." Maybe not as poetic, but definitely representative. And here's a tidbit, an interesting piece of information for you. 3 minutes before landing on the moon, a radar system on Eagle was manually activated because of the incorrectly written operation script. But thanks to the automatic software override, that command was ignored and the mission continued instead of being aborted. The person who developed the onboard flight software for the Apollo program was Margaret Hamilton, a woman. So we can thank her that the landing was a success. Nowadays, talking about humans as men and a person as he is no longer acceptable, and it is considered sexist. To be sexist means to feel that one gender or sex is superior to the other, whether in all or some specific areas of life. Most commonly, this prejudice is against women, but it can and it does work in both directions. There are two main areas where this can be a problem in formal communication. The first is the use of pronouns. If you say, "Our average customer is not concerned with his product warranty," it makes it sound like all your customers are men. His warranty. If you say, "his or her product warranty," the gender issue is resolved, but writing like this is just awkward. A much better solution is to use plural and say their product warranty. It's not perfect, but it works. In our example, we could actually remove the problem completely and simply say "with product warranty," but that is not always possible. Let's look at another example and start talking about the other gender problem. A good salesman keeps in regular contact with his customers. Again, we have his that should be replaced with their. But once we do that, we lose the grammatical agreement between the salesman and their. Salesman is singular and their is plural. If we were to then change salesman to its plural salesman, we would be grammatically correct. But we would still have the gender problem because not every salesperson is male. There are probably just as many women in sales. So the best solution here is to use neutral plural salespeople. Good salespeople keep in regular contact with their customers. In other words, be careful when talking about occupations. Historically, they used to be very insensitive to gender. So instead of saying policeman or policewoman, say police officer. Don't say workman, but worker. And it's not a fireman, but a firefighter. The rules are, if you can't avoid the pronoun, use plural instead of he or she. And be careful with occupations.